By 1954, however, a veil of secrecy had descended among African. What? Am I on the right one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Key point number 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. A veil of secrecy had descended among African American activists. In the years after Brown, more than 500,000 people opposed to integration and dedicated to white supremacy joined organizations like the White Citizens Council, the Ku Klux Klan, and the American States Rights Association, and launched an all-out war against the burgeoning freedom struggle. Death threats and dynamite blasts shook civil rights advocates across the region. The Patillos understood that the swirling storm of resistance that segregationists unleashed after Brown made silence about sexual violence a political imperative. Demagoguery of miscegenation fanned followers' fears to a red-hot rage. Most did not explicitly advocate violence, but their extremist rhetoric undoubtedly encouraged it. Some politicians could not hold back. A few killings now, a Mississippi legislator boasted, could save a lot of bloodshed then. Am I reading the question?
Yes.
What do you think of white supremacist groups mentioned in key points number 2 and the fact that the United States refused and still refuses to publicly recognize these groups as terrorists? If members of the KKK and other white supremacist groups inflicted as much terror on white people as they do on blacks, do you believe this would be the case?
Well,
Benita?
I think I might want to listen for the rest of the night.
Right.
Oh, no.
What universe are we in?
I don't feel good. I'm having a lupus attack today. I'm feeling really bad.
Oh.
But of course not. Of course not. It's the same. A good analogy is when we had the bombing of the Twin Towers. Mm-hmm. And our country started to profile a certain group of people. However, we had the Oklahoma City bombing, which was a man with blonde hair and blue eyes. And I hardly saw our country going around profiling every white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. So we selectively choose, or our country selectively chooses, who's a terrorist and who's not.
Right, right.
And besides, and I should say in addition to that, Ku Klux Klansmen and white supremacists don't wear signs on their backs or their fronts. If they did, most of the times we'd be able to identify them and we could turn and go the other way.
Right.
But if you have maybe these folks in your Senate, if you have them in your Congress, and you might even have them on your Supreme Court, they're your doctors, they're your lawyers, they're your teachers. The question again was what? So you have to, all things considering it, and if you're willing to accept it, no, they wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
No, they wouldn't.
Okay. Randy?
Me and Vanita are on the same page tonight. He is saying everything I want to say. So I don't even know. Really, Michelle, when I was reading this chapter, I was panicking because I was like, Michelle is going to be so mad at me. I can't finish the chapter. That's all I was thinking about. Like, she's going to be so mad at me. But I finished, and I did the discussion questions and the key points. I don't know what it is about this chapter, and the more we get into this book. And
it was a very violent chapter.
Yeah, it was. I just, I mean, Atlanta just we just had the KKK just had a meeting on the steps of downtown Atlanta a few months ago. I think in April, and they had police officers lined up on the street to keep anybody from attacking them, even though this is a terrorist group. And
Yeah.
they're, you know, they had I don't know what the little horn is called, you know, so they can speak, and they have black police officers up there, and I'm just like, what is this black man thinking? Like, how is he feeling right now to be put on this duty? Did he choose it? Could he have said no? And it's just it's just a constant reminder that we're not safe. And as long as you are a citizen of America, you can use the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and get away with everything. I mean, but of course, you know, a black person couldn't shoot out a white person's car because his country music was too loud, and we felt threatened. But Michael Dunn could do that to Jordan Davis, you know, and you know, it's this constant double standard, which is why, like last week, I said I don't believe in respectability policy because it don't seem like no matter what we do, we can still get killed and still don't get looked after, and terrorist groups that have proven to be terroristic don't get called what they are, and we have to sit in Atlanta and watch them have their meeting and can't do nothing about it.
Welcome to blackness.
I'll make a comment on that, please.
I was thinking earlier today, when I was about your age, Randy, I was living in D.C., and my mom and my younger brother had come to visit me, and I thought it was a good idea to take them out to I think it was an anti-apartheid rally that I was going to. And the KKK had decided that they wanted to march in D.C. because they didn't really like the idea of ending apartheid. And, you know, time I knew anything, there were police on horses and white men and guns flying, and me and my mom and my baby brother are running for cover. And this is life in America. And, you know, in terms of us not being safe anywhere, we're not. I mean, to me, when we talk about what happened, so many people of my generation, and I'm 54, so I was a young child during the 60s, and you know, and so therefore not directly involved in the protests of the 60s, but was starting to kind of see what was going on in the 70s and 80s. But so many people of my generation seem to feel that the work was done, that we had arrived, that, you know, that whatever, all the work that we had seen go on to knock down doors so that we would have opportunities. Many of my peers felt like they no longer were obligated to move through the world in that way. And so, you know, and so they went on and they got good jobs and they started making lots of money and they bought big homes and big cars and started looking down their nose on poor black folks, and you know, and that's what it was. Got educations and, you know, all these degrees and whatnot, but disconnected from blackness to whatever extent they could, which is, you know, a little tricky when your skin is black, but did the best they could. And so while we were off in this little slumber thing, white folks, the same white folks we're reading about in At the Dark End of the Street, have not given up their full-blown hatred of blackness, but we're busy coming up with new and better ways to make our lives hell on earth. And so that's where we are. White folks are very organized. That's why they could pull off all that Tea Party action, you know, like that, because they never stopped. We stopped. We went to sleep, and I don't know. I mean, you're at that age. You're a young woman. You know, you've got loads of choices before you, and maybe you'll choose to direct your life toward making some difference in these conditions that we've been dealing with for hundreds of years, or maybe you'll go in the other direction. But that's where we are. Our lives have not substantially changed since we got brought to this country. I'm done.
Good points, Michelle. I would I concur. We went to sleep. Vanita asked what happened, and what happened is we went to sleep and we were put to sleep. We were put in a comatose state, a state of unawareness, a state of disconnect from our past experiences and the wisdom that we could learn from those past experiences. And we've been constantly and relentlessly under attack. Attack from our objective to be included into the mainstream of life in America. It's like that dream that's unfulfilled. Langston Hughes asked the question, what happens to a dream deferred? That's been our story. Or as Malcolm said about the dream, he said it wasn't a dream, it was a nightmare. And the nightmare being our real existence.
Right.
And so I think that what we have to do today, which is sorely not being done, and that is that we have to educate our children to being and our friends, and whatnot, family, to being responsible for creating a dream that is independent of our dream to be included in the white man's world. Because at bottom, at the end of the day, we are human beings. We are a living organism, and as such, we need to be sustained.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an artificial existence when we depend upon our enemies in particular to sustain us. So we got to disconnect from that dream. King said that we are inextricably tied to white folks. That's slavery talking right there. We're not inextricably tied.
Uh-oh. It froze up. Can anybody hear? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you.
Okay. Labib.
Can't hear Labib.
Can't hear Labib. Okay. I guess he'll be back in a minute. Randy, back to you.
Did Vanita or Georgette, do you have anything to say about the second question before we move on?
Well, the only thing I'd like to add is that these kind of groups have been embedded in the government since the beginning, and they're useful to them. So useful, for the power holders, the people who want to grab the power,
Right.
Because if the nice tactics didn't work, well, then they unleashed the dogs on you. And that's
Right.
going back toward the indigenous peoples when they gave them a little bit of land in the West and said, well, this is yours, but then they found oil and some other precious minerals on it, and they started stuff. It's the
Right.
same thing, which is the same thing they do today, and you'll see that in different countries, the same methods. If it works, they'll keep using it.
Right.
So,
Right. And it works.
unfortunately, and it just makes you. This is my last point, and I'm gonna let you move on. This is my last. It just makes you wonder. Well, what are you talking to me about when you're talking about the terrorists? In the Islamic terrorists, when we have these guys here under the guise of the Tea Party and more extreme groups saying just the same thing, trying to be a little less verbally specific about what they really want, but they want the same thing.
Well, they want to take their country back.
Yes.
Yeah. They're clear about that.
Yes. So it's unfair. That's all I have.
All right. Labib, you're back. We lost you.
That in mid-stride, you could probably blame it on blame it on the man. He's probably not satisfied with what we're doing here, what we're trying to do here, and because we know he listens in.
Oh yeah.
But
I hope he's listening.
That's right. But essentially, to kind of just tie in, what I'm getting from everyone, from Vanita to yourself, Michelle, and from Georgette and Randy, is that it's time that we retreat from this dream of inclusion, and start doing some things that are necessary for our survival into the future. One of the things that I observe, and this, I'll say this last so they tie it in. I asked the question, do you ever see a squirrel doing work for another squirrel? and making sure the other squirrel eats? No.
I can't say that I do.
That's right. It is almost against nature that you would do something for someone else that you wouldn't do for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that you have to do for your own survival's sake. The individual squirrel has to go out at a certain time, a certain season, and start gathering those nuts and hiding those nuts where he or she will remember where they are come wintertime. Mm-hmm. You see, mm-hmm. And so they can eat through the winter and survive to the spring and through the summer. See, and black folks, due to in 250 plus years of enslaved chattel slavery, where we were reduced to animals, we were eating right alongside, being fed, I should say, right alongside the dog or the pig. This was a reality. And then to go from that stage of animalization and being described as and being treated as even less than a dog, you will get more in trouble even to this day. Didn't Michael Vick get jail time for dog fighting and maybe the loss of some dogs' lives, and he got castigated for that. He still lives with that to this day. On the flip side, we had the young brother, just one of several, Trayvon Martin, who was killed by a man who wasn't even a police officer, was pursued by a man who wasn't even a police officer, was goaded into defending himself by a man who wasn't even a police officer, and it resulted in his death. And that same white man did not always, he's a white Hispanic, went to trial and was found not guilty, didn't serve any jail time, those kind of things. So it's time that that we reorganize ourselves, regroup, and start doing some things that we need to get done for ourselves.
Yeah, I'm noticing the artwork behind you. That's one of your pieces.
I'm kind of blocking it now. I guess. Okay, there we go. Yes. That's that's a piece of mine that I did probably about 4 years ago now.
Very nice. Y'all know Labiba's an artist, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Benita, did you want to respond? Huh?
No, I was saying this art piece reminds me of a piece that Picasso did.
You see, some of my other work is more in that vein. But I appreciate the compliment.
No, it's fabulous, and I love art. It's one of my favorite things.
Okay, well, we got to become Facebook friends. You can check out some of the stuff I have up.
All right, now.
Okay.
I don't know what else. I think Georgette summed it up pretty well. It's just as far as the Ku Klux Klansmen, it's funny you say that. I live in Connecticut, and Hartford is probably about 9 minutes from me, right down 91 North. The Ku Klux Klansmen had rallies in the Bushnell Park right up through the 80s. Visibly right to the 80s. They had rallies right there in the Bushnell, which is the center on the green of our downtown. One day I was coming home and I was on one of the main streets where it's all Caucasians, beautiful homes, no big do, but it's a cool street. And I stopped at a traffic light and I turned to the side and they're in the car next to me with all their garb on. I mean, this is, the only folks who get a chance to terrorize folks are white folks. If you have 1 million men show up on Capitol Hill, black men with guns on their shoulders say that for the NRA, they would snap the National Guards. You would have the Air Force, Army, you may be out there. But you can have 1 million white men show up on Capitol Hill with guns across their shoulders and say, we're fighting for the right to keep our guns, NRA. And they say, oh, no problem, come on in. So, I'm never amazed by any of this, I'm just kind of like shock-proof. Because when the Ku Klux Klan was right next to me in the car, I'm like, hey, how you doing? It's like, and and the only reason why I stopped because finally they had their large rallies down at Bushnell Park, and folks simply did not show. They were shunned by Connecticut. But at some point, Connecticut was not shunning them, honey. If it wasn't nothing but 25 people out there, it was 25 out there saying, "You go KKK."
Well, yeah, it's it's not polite,
right,
to put on your cape anymore. To put on your hood.
No, you don't. But it's
style.
No, I would much rather have them put on their capes and their hood and identify them than go into the hospital and go underneath a night. And I know doctors take a vow, say do no harm. Our business is the business of healing. But I'd rather for that surgeon to have on his hood than to have a flashback. I'd rather for that pediatrician to have on his hood the way to my child, that teacher to have on the hood than to educate my child and got a situation going on. So I don't have a problem with the hood because I can identify it. As long as I can identify you, I have choices.
That's right.
But if I can't identify you, I have no choices.
Right.
And that leaves me defenseless.
Correct.
Right.
So no, I want to keep the hoods on so I know who you are and I can, like I said, defend myself, walk away, do that to do. But I can't have you walking around here and I don't know who you are. When I write that letter to my congressman, I may be writing to one of the KKK Grand Wizards.
That's right.
Which we had the Grand Wizard live right here in Birmingham, Connecticut.
Yeah.
I mean, this town's right here that I don't walk through, ride through, or anything. And we're in 2014. So, no, keep the hoods on so I can identify you. I just can't have you running around here and I don't know who you are. And I know some people may feel a little differently, but I need to be able to identify you. I do. It's scary when I can't.
Randy.
Yes.
You're going to have to wrestle this this crowd, we don't have a problem of people that don't talk.
Randy.
So you jump in whenever you feel like telling folks to move on.
It's all right. Get to it in everyday life.